You are walking away from a conversation right now, inside your head, replaying what you said, wondering how you came across, adjusting the memory slightly, editing it toward the version where you seem smarter, cooler, more impressive. And the person you said it to has almost certainly forgotten. This is the prison you carry, not the actual opinions of other people, which are far more forgiving and far more distracted than you imagine, but the opinions you have invented for them, the audience you have constructed and then performed for every moment of every day in the theater of your own mind. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and became the most influential teacher of his age, identified this as one of the primary sources of human misery. He did not call it shyness or insecurity. He called it a confusion about what is up to us and what is not. Other people's opinions of you are not up to you. They never were. They are formed by factors entirely outside your control, by the other person's mood on a particular morning, by what happened to them when they were 11 years old, by 100 details of their inner life that have nothing to do with you. And yet most people spend extraordinary quantities of mental energy trying to control exactly this. They perform, they manage impressions, they suppress authentic reactions and manufacture approved ones. They say yes when they mean no, and no when they mean yes. And they smile when they are angry and defer when they are right. And all of it is aimed at a target that does not exist. Because the target is not other people's real opinions. The target is the imagined opinion of the imagined audience they have constructed inside their own minds. The Stoics had a name for this misplaced energy. They called it caring about what is not up to us. And they considered it the foundational error of the unexamined life. Marcus Aurelius asked himself a question in his private journals that still cuts through every century. How soon will you be forgotten? He was emperor of Rome, the most publicly scrutinized man alive, and he knew that within a generation or two, almost everyone who praised or condemned him would themselves be forgotten, and his reputation with them. This is not pessimism, it is liberation. When you truly understand that the opinions being formed about you right now will dissolve within decades, within years, within hours, you realize that the elaborate performance you have been staging has no permanent audience. Zeno of Citium, who founded the Stoic school, taught that virtue, and virtue alone, is the only true good. Everything else, reputation, status, the esteem of others, is what the Stoics called a preferred indifferent. Something you might reasonably pursue, but that cannot define the quality of your life or character. The moment you place your well-being in the hands of another person's opinion, you have outsourced your sovereignty. Epictetus put this in the starkest possible terms. He said that you are not hurt by what people think about you. You are hurt by the belief that what they think matters to your well-being. Remove the belief, and the wound disappears. The insult cannot land where there is no target for it. This does not mean becoming indifferent to everything. The Stoics cared deeply about character, about virtue, about the quality of their choices. Epictetus cared about what Epictetus thought of Epictetus. Marcus cared about what a rational, just person would think of his conduct. This inward standard, this internal tribunal, is what the Stoics called living according to reason. The question was not, what will people think? It was, what would the person I am trying to become think? Those are different questions. The first hands your life to others. The second returns it to you. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, wrote something that sounds almost cruel until you understand what he means. He said that spending time with the crowd corrupts, not because people are bad, but because the crowd runs on the currency of appearance. Dress a certain way, speak a certain way, want a certain set of things. When you immerse yourself entirely in that current, you absorb its logic. You begin to measure yourself by its measure. The counter, Seneca argued, is not to become a hermit. It is to develop an inner standard so clear and so stable that the crowd's judgment slides off it rather than sticking to it. You can walk through the crowd and remain yourself, but only if you have done the prior work of deciding who you are and why. Cato the Younger is the Stoic example the others reach for when they want to show what this looks like in practice. He wore the wrong clothes on purpose. He walked barefoot when it was unfashionable. He ate plain food when banquets were the measure of status. He did these things not to be eccentric. He did them because he refused to allow the external world to define his choices. His wardrobe was a small daily act of sovereignty. He was also the most morally serious politician in Rome, and when Caesar's power became total and the Republic was finished, he chose death rather than accept the pretense of freedom. He did not ask whether this would be understood. He did not perform it for an audience. He did what he believed virtue required, and he let that be sufficient. Musonius Rufus, who may be the most underread of all the Stoic philosophers, taught his students that philosophy is not something you recite. It is something you make visible in how you eat, how you walk, how you receive an insult, how you respond when no one is watching. The practice is continuous, and the standard is always internal. Not what does the room think, but what does my best self require? So how do you begin to move the standard inward? 3 practices. First, the opinion audit. The next time you feel anxiety about what someone thinks of you, stop and ask 2 questions. 1. What do they actually think? Not what you imagine, but what you have concrete evidence of. You will usually find that the imagined opinion is far harsher than the real one, which is often simply distracted. 2. If they do think poorly of you, what exactly does that change? Walk the consequence all the way to its end. You may find it changes almost nothing that actually matters. Second, the internal tribunal. Identify one person, real or imagined, whose judgment represents the standard you actually want to live by. A figure from history, your wisest imagined self. Before you act, before you capitulate to the room's approval, ask what that person would think, not the crowd, not the loudest voice in the room, the one you genuinely respect. Third, the small sovereignty. Identify one area where you have been managing an impression rather than living a truth, one place where you perform rather than simply are. Start there. Do the thing that is true rather than the thing that is approved. Not to make a point, not to rebel, but to practice being yourself without apologizing for it. The more often you do this in small things, the less the large things will cost. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the approval of men is a temporary and empty thing. He wrote this as an emperor, the most publicly scrutinized man alive, and he kept having to return to it because the pull is constant. The desire to be seen as good, the desire to be validated. These are not weaknesses, they are human. But the Stoic project is not to extinguish these desires. It is to place them in their proper proportion. You can want to be respected, you can care about your reputation, but these things cannot be the foundation because they are not yours. They are given and taken by forces that have nothing to do with your actual character. What is yours is the quality of your attention, the honesty of your judgment, the consistency between what you believe and how you live. That is the ground no one can take from you. Seneca wrote, "It is the quality of the soul, not the opinion of others, that determines the worth of a man." That is the beginning of freedom. If this video gave you something, subscribe. It is the simplest way to tell me to keep making these. Until next time, be sovereign.